Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks host the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. Tonight at 7 p.m., it's soccer night, and kids glow around the bases postgame. Saturday at 6:30, it's Broadway night with postgame fireworks and Broadway rave. Sunday at 1:30, it's Military Appreciation Day, and the kids run around the bases.
A great day out for the entire family. Kids run the bases after every Sunday home game. Want the best seats all season? Get more Ferry Hawks for only $63. Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm economist Steve Moore. Thank you so much for joining. I know we have affiliates throughout these great United States. We're all the way west to Los Angeles. We have stations in Kansas City and St. Louis and Chicago, and we're up all the way to Maine, all the way down to Georgia. So thank you for tuning in. If you're a regular listener, you have made this. You're the people who make this show a success. So thank you for sharing some time on your weekend to learn how to make more money. And that's what we're here for. We talk about economics. We talk about finance. We talk a little bit about politics. I'm in a very, very good mood today, folks, because it turns out that I was an investor. I had forgotten about this, but my wife and I, a number of years ago, had invested in a technology fund that had an assortment of new technology stocks, and one of them was SpaceX. And I had completely forgotten that we had this, and I was looking at, how much money we made on this, and it was a lot of money. And so I was listening to Larry Kudlow earlier during the day. He's, of course, one of the great economists in the country, and Larry was saying that there have been at least 4,000, I think it's a lot more than that, 4,000 people who were made millionaires because of Elon Musk and SpaceX. So it's a wonderful thing. Capitalism is a wonderful thing. It's the only place in the world where you can make a lot of money by being a shrewd investor and investing in great American companies. I love the Elon Musk story. He's another one of those incredible immigrants who came to this country with not a lot of money. And we've heard this story over and over and over again. 3 of the top 7 tech companies in the United States were started by immigrants. So this is why we need immigration, because we bring in so much talent and so many great minds in this country. So it's so exciting. I mean, it is just amazing what SpaceX can do in terms of putting satellites all over. So, I was telling Larry earlier when I was talking to him that, everybody's complaining about data centers, and we need data centers, absolutely. So our internet works and so our technology works. But soon the data centers will be out in outer space. There will be satellites will be able to do all of this, just as so much of the telecommunications now, we're tearing down telephone poles because we just zip from one satellite to another. It's an exciting future we are facing. I wanted to mention, by the way, something, and we're going to have a fun discussion today, and I'm going to try to take calls at the end of the show, but I want to mention something very quickly before we take our quick break. I'm so overwhelmed in gratitude to people who've been emailing me and phoning me and dropping a line saying, hey, what happened to the second hour of the More Money Show? And, I was getting kind of exhausted in doing the show. I mean, 1 hour is good. 2 hours, that was a little bit of a heavy lift, but we got so much of an overwhelming response, people complaining, what happened to the second hour, that it looks like we will be doing a second hour again very shortly in the weeks ahead. So that's great. And I really appreciate all of you who wrote me notes or wrote notes to the radio producer saying, hey, we need the second hour of More Money. So I think that's coming, folks, and I'm excited about that. I hope you are. So we're going to take a quick break. My first guest is going to be Jeff Yass, who is the very famous founder of Susquehanna Capital. He knows more about this technology stuff and the wealth creation process than anybody I know. And we'll be talking about, what this means for America, that we have this incredible new company that is the first $1 trillion Well, he's going to be the first $1 trillion man, but it's going to be a $2 trillion company. Can you believe that? Only in America. Thank God it was made here in America, not in China. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining this weekend. My next guest is Jeff Yass. Jeff and I have been friends for, 25 years or so. He is the founder of Susquehanna Capital, has been incredibly successful. He and his wife are very involved in school choice and have done amazing things to expand school opportunities for people around the country. So thank you, Jeff, for everything you and Janine have done in that regard. But I wanted to bring Jeff on today because he and I have been talking about this whole issue of Elon Musk. It's first of all, Jeff, what an ode to capitalism we saw yesterday in the markets. The first $2 trillion company. I mean, only in America.
That's true, Steve. Thanks for having me. It was. It should be a day we're celebrating.
Yep. And yet, Jeff, I hear a lot of moaning at the New York Times and Bloomberg about, oh, my God, capitalism is a terrible thing because we have a trillionaire now. Oh, no, we can't have that. That's too much wealth for anyone to have. But what about the trillions of dollars he's making for other people? There's an estimate, I think it's almost 5,000 people have been made millionaires by this guy. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he has done, the new frontiers. And thank God, as the Wall Street Journal said, if Elon Musk were Chinese and we're doing this in China, say, oh my God, we're falling behind China, but it's here in the USA.
Right, that's exactly right. The Bernie Sanders said if this doesn't prove we have an oligarchy, I don't know what does.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that you and I have been talking about. It's a really good lead into two things you and I have been working on together, because you do a lot of policy work as well. So one of them, and I'll just mention them both, and we'll talk separately about them. One is, how you could actually impose, why not do offer all these people who've made all this money in the markets a 15% capital gains tax if they basically fast forward, they pay forward their capital gains. We could probably raise, I don't know, $200 to $300 billion in tax revenues because people would take advantage of that lower rate and the government would get additional money to reduce our deficit. I love that idea, Jeff, but also, Well, first, let's take on that one. So, because you really came up with this concept, how would it work?
Well, first of all, Steve, you're being way too conservative. It's way more than $200 or $300 billion. I would think it's well over $1 trillion. Musk himself is just made $1 trillion. If he handed in 15% of his stock, he alone is $150 billion.
That's right. Just one person. Right.
Right. So the way it would work, we would say to anyone who, even if it's in your personal account or if you're Elon Musk or anybody, instead of waiting to pay 23.8% capital gains tax, where you have these stocks that you don't really want to own, but you don't want to pay the taxes, there'll be a one-time tax holiday of 15% for the next year or so. And you don't have to sell your stock and give us cash. You can just give us stock. So, for example, Elon Musk owns $1 trillion worth of SpaceX. He can just give the U.S. government 15% of his holdings. So instead of owning, he owns 7 billion shares, he would own, approximately 6 billion. The government would get 1 billion shares, non-voting, because we can't let the government vote.
That's critical.
Would be a disaster. And then the government over time sells these stocks like in an ETF, like an S&P fund, and they wouldn't have to go borrow $2 trillion next year to fund the deficit. They would just gradually sell out of these stocks, and interest rates would go down because there wouldn't be $2 trillion of demand for treasuries, and people's portfolios would be balanced. They wouldn't be having, the money would be freed up to go to more productive uses, and we're going to need that capital because we're probably going to spend close to $10 trillion over the next decade getting data centers, compute, and getting AI up to speed. So we need the money.
Well, I love this idea. Now, of course, my friends on the left say, tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts for the rich. But for one thing, you're getting the money up front, so there's a time value of money, and getting the money now versus getting the money 20 years from now is very valuable to the United States. That's point number one. Point number two, a lot of people just end up, they avoid paying capital gains tax because they basically die with the assets, and then they get what's called a step-up basis at death. So a lot of it, capital gains is never really even collected on. So it seems to me this is a win-win for the people who own the stocks. It's a win-win for the federal government. It improves the overall U.S. economy, and people are worried about the budget deficit and the amount we're borrowing, and I include myself in that camp. This would dramatically reduce federal borrowing.
Yeah, and it would also, it's really not a tax cut, because if you wait long enough, paying 15% today is like paying 23.8%.
Yes, exactly.
20 years, or possibly zero if you use the stepped up basis upon death. But it also would illustrate to the people, certainly not the hardcore leftists, but at least the people, that we want entrepreneurs. We want people making $1 trillion or, any amount, so that we could collect these taxes and reduce the deficit. And that would mean a tax cut for everybody else, because we'd be getting it from the Elon Musks of the world. And it would show the people that capitalism is good. We need people figuring great things out to pay our bills.
So, that's such an important last point you just made. I think about how the world has changed in the last 20 years. And the most amazing thing to me, Jeff, is you look at these companies like Anthropic, you look at Google, you look at Apple, you look at Amazon, you look at Microsoft, all these companies. I think like 9 of the 10 top technology companies in the world are in the United States. I think 12 of the 15 most valuable companies in the world are here in the United States. And, look, we don't have enough free market capitalism. Government's too big, but we probably have the freest markets of any country virtually in the world.
Yeah, that's true. We can certainly do a lot better, but we're still way better than the rest of the world.
We're not France.
Yeah. The thing is, there was talk, like the New York Times has stories. Elon Musk could buy every sports team in America and still have $500 billion left over. All these things amazing that he could do. Or with the $1 trillion in taxes they're going to collect from SpaceX over time, they can give every family of four $12,000, which is essentially what they're going to do. That's $3,000 a person, 333 million people. So if you're a family of four, you are eventually going to receive about $12,000 from Elon Musk. You would think we would be celebrating that.
Yes. Yeah, and instead, a lot of people think it's almost fiendish that he's become a trillionaire. Now, we only have about 4 minutes left, and I wanted to mention the other issue that you and I have been working on. It's so ironic that the two biggest stories right now this week have been, number one, this amazing IPO of the SpaceX, but the other one being Social Security is going bankrupt. And I'm thinking, Jeff, what a tragedy that the Congress did not take up our idea. You and I have been working on this for 25 years. Why not let every single American, instead of having to put their payroll tax money into this black box of Social Security, why not let them own things? Think of how much wealth would have been created for average Americans if that money, if their Social Security dollars were in owning companies like Google and SpaceX.
Right. Well, supposedly, the story is Social Security is good for the poor. But what Social Security does is it takes about $1.5 trillion a year from people, says you cannot invest in the stock market. That enables rich people who want to invest in the stock market to make higher returns, but they're not competing with that other $1.5 trillion. So the poor get poorer and the rich get richer because of Social Security. Had we done, the whole thing with the wealth inequality is really largely caused by government interference, preventing people from participating in the great bull market. They're now poor. the people who participated are rich, and instead of saying the government caused it with this crazy idea, they get angry at the wealthy when they subsidize the wealthy and punish the poor.
It's true, and it's just a trap. We did some numbers at Unleash Prosperity. We found that even someone who made a minimum wage job their whole life, and there's not too many people in that camp. So the worst case scenario, even somebody who just made a minimum wage for their 40 years of working, they'd have $1 million in these accounts.
Yeah, I know, and they still won't admit it, and they don't want to change it.
Yeah, well, it's never too late. We've got to do that. That's our next mission, Jeff, is to make sure that, and by the way, I would make it optional to young workers, because the people are going to be screwed by the fact that Social Security is going bankrupt. It's not me and you. It's our kids and our grandkids that are going to get screwed. They're going to make us pay more taxes for our kids and less out. How is that a good deal for young people?
No, it is not.
Well, Jeff Yass, thank you for everything you do for making America a greater place. I just think that what happened this week with respect to this, and by the way, Anthropic's coming up, right? And we've got two more big IPOs coming up.
Right. We have two more that should be close to $1 trillion apiece.
Wow.
And, it's only in America.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, Jeff Yass, thanks so much for covering out some time on your weekend to come on The More Money Show. This is The More Money Show, folks, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining the show. As I was saying earlier, you're the people who make this show so successful. And I also always say that I am not the greatest radio talk show host, but I have the greatest audience, the smartest audience. I know that because I take your calls. I listen to what you have to say. I learn a lot listening to you. And I'm going to squeeze in some calls because we're live. We're in color, folks. We're one of the very few weekend shows that is live in color in real time. So if you'd like to join the show, I'm going to save about the last 10 minutes of the show to hear what you have to say. What do you think about Elon Musk? What do you think about Social Security going bankrupt? What do you think about the fact that people like Bernie Sanders are saying, "Oh, we hate wealthy people. We can't have billionaires. We can't have trillionaires." Well, it's an American dream. Only in America can somebody make $1 billion or $1 trillion. Only in America can somebody come into this great country of ours, oftentimes with only the shirt on their back, and become rich. And that is the American dream. And that is what our country is about. So it's something to celebrate our 250th birthday. My next guest, and by the way, I want to thank again Jeff Yass from Susquehanna Capital for really pointing out we could raise hundreds of billions of dollars of tax revenue by just fast forwarding capital gains tax, give people a 15% 2-year window, pay the capital gains tax forward, and the government would raise hundreds of billions of dollars of revenues, much of which might never be collected. So why not do that? It benefits everybody. But I want to change subjects for a minute because my next guest, Jerry Boyer, who is the head of Boyer Research, is the world's expert on capital investment and this whole idea of ESG and DEI and how all of these companies are in the banks and the big money managers are have been steering all of this money into these crazy things like racial preferences and the idea of net zero, so that we don't have any fossil fuels, which would have been idiotic. We'd be paying $10 a gallon for gas if that story had gone forward. So Jerry is the expert on this, and I wanted to ask him a bunch of questions about where we stand with this. So Jerry Boyer, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, Steve. Great to be with you.
So a lot to cover. You're doing a new study for us. And by the way, if you're not getting our Unleash Prosperity hotline in the morning, every morning, why? Why aren't you getting it? It's absolutely free. It costs you nothing. Just go to unleashprosperity.com. All right, this down, folks. unleashprosperity.com. Just go to that website, just click on the hotline button and send us your email, and we will send you this every morning for free. It costs you nothing. So what are you waiting for? So, Jerry, you and I were talking about this, the fact that all of the governments in the world over the last 20 years or so have spent something like 15 trillion, not billion, $15 trillion on climate change. And as far as I can see, it has not changed the temperature of the planet. Nothing has changed except that we burn $15 trillion for nothing. And yet you still have a lot of these companies and a lot of the environmentalists promoting this idea of net zero, which means no oil, no gas, no fossil fuels, which would be ruinous. And then you've got a lot of these environmental groups who are commanding these businesses to come on board that crazy idea.
Yeah, it might be the greatest grift in human history.
Yes, I think so.
I can't think of any hoax bigger and more expensive. I mean, like what a Bernie Madoff did or Charles Ponzi did is a
That's
rounding
small potatoes.
error. Yeah. Exactly, compared to this.
Well, hold on, Jerry. Hold on. Stick with that thought for a minute. I mean, this is very important, folks. Even the United Nations and all these groups have said, oh, my God, the temperature is going to rise 2 or 3 degrees over the next 75 years. They've now admitted they lied to us. They admitted their models were all wrong. So it was all a hoax. And by the way, the temperature of the Earth is changing. No question about it. This idea, though, that it's man-made is unprovable. And it was a hoax. And with all that money we spent on climate change, we could have, and I'm not exaggerating, folks, we would have a cure for cancer today with that kind of money. And yet we've wasted all this money. And yet it's still out there. They're still promoting these ideas.
Yeah, cancer, dementia. $15 trillion goes a long way. What kind of highway system would we have? How much further would we be technologically with $15 trillion? I mean, especially when it's used in the private sector. What would Elon Musk have done with $15 trillion? Instead, we forced capital towards something which was basically almost like a religious quest to put carbon. We take carbon out of the ground, we put it back in. So what? Didn't have any effect on anything, except people did get that money. I mean, that money wasn't burned. That money went to green billionaires. That money went to bureaucrats. Somebody spent that money. That went somewhere. It went to an industry, which then comes back and influences policy in that direction.
By the way, I've been calling it for years the climate change industrial complex, because that's what it was.
It is. Everything except the industry. It's complex, but it basically sucks money away from everybody else. And by the way, it doesn't change the amount of carbon emissions. Because China isn't listening, India isn't listening, Japan isn't listening, Saudi Arabia isn't listening. So what it does is it takes that process of industrialization and moves it to the third world, where instead of just emitting carbon, they also emit real pollutants along with it, because they don't really have any pollution controls there. So we have more carbon, more pollutants, less American industry.
So, Jerry, the great analysis. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, you're doing this study for us at Unleash Prosperity, looking at how the environmentalists try to influence these companies, the big companies and the big banks, to not invest in companies if they are not doing net. So explain to people what net zero is, because I think a lot of people don't even know what this dim-witted idea is.
Yeah, net zero is the idea that you ought to look at the carbon emissions. For some reason, they treat carbon dioxide as a pollutant. Right now,
which it's not.
You and I are producing carbon dioxide. When we exhale, the whole animal kingdom produces carbon dioxide, and the plant kingdom takes it in, right? We have a nice relationship with the plants, we mammals and animals, et cetera. It's a symbiotic relationship. And, the amount that comes out of industry is a tiny, 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 tiny fraction, maybe fifth decimal point of the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. But somehow people have convinced us that it's a pollutant. So companies have to have a net, which is when you basically they're gonna emit some carbon, right? But then they have to do something to pay to take the carbon back out of the air and put it into the ground, or basically pay loggers to not log so there's more trees, so that it nets out to zero carbon emission. It's a little bit like in the late Middle Ages where you would pay for your sins, where you buy indulgences. We're paying indulgences to Gaia the goddess of the earth for breathing and having industry.
So, Jerry, the good news here, I mean, first of all, this was a swindle. It was a grift. It was a lot of people got really, really, really rich off of climate change. Unfortunately, it didn't do anything for the environment. But the good news is you've got this report coming out that's showing a lot of the big banks and a lot of the investment firms are now have caught on to this, and they're no longer really. So I think net zero is kind of dead right now because it's been killed by economic reality.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. In the end, the laws of physics and chemistry win against the laws of politics. So at some point, these companies, and we talk to these companies all the time. We've had 140 meetings with companies in the past year. And what they've even said that to us. Look, in the end, it didn't work. They couldn't make it work. An airline says that to us. You know what? We use fossil fuels. Airline fuel is made out of fossil fuels. We need it. We can't run without it. We don't run on nuclear. We don't run on coal. We're not going to. You can't put big solar panels on an airplane and expect it to go. Solar panels are heavy. Batteries are heavy. And reality just caught up with them. And also economic reality caught up with them. And all these outflows from ESG funds. I heard someone recently say in the industry, ESG is dead when it comes to flows of funds. People are fleeing from them because they underperformed, because physics wins in the end.
So Jerry Boyer at Boyer Research did a big study for us on Unleashed Prosperity, where we've been monitoring, because one of the points that we've made, and you've made too, Jerry, is that when you put your money into a bank or an investment fund, and then they are telling these companies you're investing in, don't do fossil fuels, don't do all these crazy environmental things. That is a violation, Jerry, of their fiduciary duty to you, the investor, that they're using your money for political issues.
Absolutely, it is, and especially if they're using it in a way that if the companies listen to it would hurt returns. And I'd say one person in 1,000 understands that when you're in your 401k and you're with a mutual fund or an ETF, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock. Now, some of them have shifted, some of them haven't. That somebody's voting with your money. When you talk to someone about their 401k plan, they don't know someone voted with their money, and they think, they voted for the board of directors, they voted for the auditors. No, they voted on net zero. They voted on every political issue.
Like racial preferences and things like that.
Exactly. Or plastics, with forced recycling, even though it costs more money, or against fossil fuels. Every single issue we argue about at Thanksgiving dinner is on ballots, but you voted, but you don't know how you voted. And
why I hate this, by the way? I hate this because I cannot stand when I go to a restaurant and they give me a paper straw and I take 4 sips out of it, and then I can't sip anything out of it because the paper evaporates, blah, blah, blah. And also, this is just one of the things that just annoys the hell out of me. I go to the grocery store now and they won't give me a plastic bag. So they give me these paper bags, and I go out to the car with lugging these 2 big paper bags of groceries, and guess what? They collapse and all the food falls all over I'm so embarrassed. Why do they hate plastic?
I really, it's kind of an elitist disdain for the middle class, because think about it. Think about what plastic is. Plastic comes from fossil fuels. And then what do you do with the plastic after? Well, you put it in a landfill and you put it back in the ground. That's exactly what they say we're supposed to do. You're sequestering the carbon, but for some reason they don't like it because it's kind of middle class. And then, by the way, where does paper come from? Well, it's trees.
Yes, and we need trees because trees absorb the carbon dioxide.
So they're telling us that we need to stop cutting down trees when they engage on fossil fuels, and they're telling us we need to cut down more trees when they engage on plastic usages. It's just so much virtue signaling that it's absolutely crazy, and it costs more money. We talked to Starbucks about this because they did an experiment with plastic straws. We said, how much did it cost? And they said, we're not going to tell you. I said, well, we're shareholders. We want to know. How much did it cost?
Yes.
Well, we don't disclose that. Well, why don't you? Probably it was costing extra money because you stopped forcing it on people, so something went wrong. Why don't you just tell us how big a mistake you made?
So the reason this is so important, folks, and Jerry, you've been so great on this, you're a one-man crusader on this, is that, look, if you want to invest in green energy and stuff as an individual, this is a free country. You can invest in whatever you want to. But what we're objecting to, Jerry, is when they take your money, folks, and they use it for these political objectives, so you're getting a lower return on your money, because guess what? One of the highest return industries over the last 10 years has been the oil and gas industry. And yet all these people didn't get to share in the profits of it because of these idiot things. So don't let them do this, folks. Do not let them vote with your shares on these political things, whether it's racial preferences or whether it's no plastics or no oil and gas or debt zero. Let's just get rid of it. I think we're making real progress there.
We are. I mean, we've seen an utter collapse. Yeah, we call it Klexit. Like there was when Brexit, when Britain pulled out of Europe. What's happening is there's a mass exodus. Not all of them, but a lot of the asset managers, meaning the investment managers and the big banks, have said, "Okay, we get it. We're out of here." It came up fast, but it sure has collapsed fast too.
Jerry, thanks for everything you've done. We haven't won, but we are winning on this, folks. So stay tuned. This is the More Money Show. We'll be taking your calls 1-800-848-9222 when we come.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for listening in on this beautiful June weekend. I love the summer. After the show, I'm going to go to the pool and hang out and read and swim some laps and take in the beautiful sunshine. I hope the sun is shining where you are. So thank you for Elon Musk. What a hero he is. He's making, raise your hand if he's made you a millionaire, because he's made thousands and thousands of people millionaires. It's the most incredible thing. Capitalism, free market capitalism is one of the most wonderful things. I'm sick and tired of Elon Musk and AOC and all of these people like Zoran Mandami. Oh, no, we can't have millionaires. We can't have billionaires. Why the hell not? What's wrong with making money? That's what America is about, is getting rich. It's called the American dream. It is alive and well. And I have friends, middle-class friends, who've become millionaires thanks to people like Elon Musk, thanks to great companies like Apple and Amazon and Microsoft and Anthropic. And I love it. I love it. There's nothing wrong with making money. That's what our whole economy is about. And I want to share the wealth. I want everybody to own these companies. It's just a shame that the government has forced people to pay 15% of their paycheck into the black hole of Social Security instead of investing it in great companies. So I feel very strongly about that. Starting tomorrow, everybody should be able to say, I don't want to put my money in Social Security. I want to put it in the stock market. When I came to this town 45 years ago, the Dow Jones was at 1,000. Now it's 51,000. I think it's headed to 1 million. I do. So nothing better than to invest in this great country of ours. We got time for a couple of quick callers. By the way, we are live and we're in color on the More Money Show. Let's go to Joseph in Connecticut. Joseph, I've only got about 30 seconds for you. So just quickly, what do you got for us?
30 seconds. Hello, Steve. Yeah, we spoke before. First of all, I coined and translated the initialism BS 30 years ago. I've been teaching chemistry over 44 years college. BS is bad science. There's a lot of bad science. I've been saying this, that this hoax is going on, and it stopped. And another thing, fossil fuels is sort of it indicates that there's a limit. There is no limit. Hydrocarbon, CH4, methane it's all over. It's in every planet in the solar system. How do we know that? Spectroscopy. We astronomers have the spectroscope. And it's all over. So they're hydrocarbons. We should stop using the term fossil fuels. Natural gas is clean. It's great. We have an abundance of it. And it's great. So, and also, of course, plastics come from hydrocarbons, and they're returned by themselves.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off. Great call, Joseph. I completely agree with you. It is not a limited resource. It is not an exhaustible resource. We have hundreds and hundreds of years of oil, gas, coal in this country. We should be using it. The idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. Carbon monoxide is a pollution. You can die from carbon monoxide, but not carbon dioxide. So it's a very good point. It is an inexhaustible resource, and we have more of this stuff than any other country, so we should be using it. Thank God for Donald Trump agrees with us on that. Okay, let's squeeze in one more caller. We have Dale, I think, calling in from Pennsylvania.
Is Gail.
Oh, hi, Steve.
Yeah, Gail.
I wonder why, as a small business person, why these large media companies in the legacy media want the high taxes and regulations. And I thought about it, and I realized that they're supporting their Democrat cronies because they want more taxes and regulations in order to put the smaller businesses out of business. And it's strictly monopolistic. And in addition, these CEO billionaires are Marxists. They're actually addicted to power because they already have all the power and money, you know. So between having the leftist CEOs and wanting to be monopolies and also to control globally, this is why you have so many indoctrinated people, which is so unfortunate. And I think they really target people.
Dale, great point. Look, I agree with half of what you said and maybe disagree with the second half. First of all, the way, if you're worried about monopolies and look, you know, some companies get a lot of power and you know, look at Amazon and Apple. They have an enormous amount of power because they sell a product that people want to use. The best way, if you're concerned about, quote, monopoly power, is to have a free market system and let anybody compete. Look at how these new companies are coming in and taking on the, you know, I noticed that we used to be worried about the monopolies of the big, network TV stations. Now, who watches network TV any longer? You got thousands of choices. But my point is, let us have 1,000 SpaceXs. Let's have 1,000 Anthropics. Let's have 1,000, Apples and Amazons. We can do this, folks. We have the smartest people in the world. This is a land of opportunity. I'm sick and tired of Bernie Sanders, and I'm sick and tired of AOC and Zoran and all these people, Elizabeth Warren saying, oh, there's, nobody can get rich in this country. It's rigged. No, it's not. It's not rigged. You got people coming into this country with only the shirt on their back and they got rich, and thank the billionaires because they're making a lot of millionaires. And trillionaires will make billionaires. I love this. I love America. I love free market capitalism. And I'm very fond of you all for listening to this show, The More Money Show. We'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel on The More Money Show.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
On the biggest stage in the world, FanDuel's changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore. With FanDuel's Super Sub, if your player's subbed out, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves the match, your bet continues on with the substitute. So you're still in it until the final whistle. Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
21 plus select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DCKYWY. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat. Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050. Massachusetts. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 877-770-7867. Louisiana.
Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.